Hello, my name is Matt Adams. I'm the president of the Visual Arts Alliance. Founded in 1981 as an all-volunteer arts nonprofit, VAA provides exhibition and education opportunities to Houston area artists and collectors. We do this through a number of types of programs. First and foremost, our juried exhibits, which is what we're going to spend some time with today. Although this is our 40th Juried Open, this is actually our 93rd exhibit because we do open exhibits, we do membership exhibits, we do invitationals. So since 1981, we have produced 93 exhibits, again, as an all-volunteer organization, which I think is just amazing and everyone involved should be proud. So I'm wondering, because I was not here for the installation, who here was helping with the installation? Thank you. Thank you. Of course, thank you. Because it takes a village, right? You know, to get these kind of things done. So we should all be proud of what we're able to accomplish, you know, as volunteers. And I'm holding catalogs, so be sure to get a catalog. We also have monthly critique nights. Our trade gallery sponsors us for that. We have monthly sketch socials. We have members workshops and monthly educational programs. And our program chair, I'm sorry, he was here earlier. I would put him on the spot for our next program because I'm not sure what it is myself. And we have a lot going on. It's always like naming the seven dwarfs. I don't always do it, but that's why there's a website and an email list. Everything we do is free and open to the public. So I encourage you to go to the website and subscribe if you're not already getting the emails, and become involved to whatever degree you want. Maybe I'm looking at future volunteers. Maybe I'm looking at a future board member or two. We never know. We never know. So it's a dynamic organization. When you have questions, you can ask me. Marie is here. She's the chairman of the exhibitions committee. So she produced this show. We're always looking for new people to get involved. Bring your time, talent, and treasure to the organization. So with that said, does anyone have any particular questions about the organization? Because it is a lot. I think everyone here are members, I hope. If not, that's fine. You're welcome to be here. So with all that said, we're here today for Artist Talks in association with this juried exhibit. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to hand it to our first artist, and we're going to work our way through
So hello, my name is Carolina Otero. I am originally from Venezuela. And I am a multimedia artist. I work in very different media. And this piece is called Dialogues, Dialogue 7. And it's a part of a series of prints I started making in 2020 during the pandemic. So I grew up in the outskirts of Caracas, surrounded by nature, by art, and a community of educators. And I think somewhat our work is always biographical. So nature and culture are very, very important to me. I have this fascination with the dawns of civilization in writings, and I see them as all works of art as imprint of our visions, of our energy. I work a lot in drawing and collage. So these pieces came about during those very, very hard times for everybody, hard times of so much uncertainty and loss and just pain. And I don't have to talk about that. What I want to talk about is my determination to make the best of that moment, which for me was an incredibly rich moment in time for humanity as a whole, but for myself as an artist, because I was like everybody in this rush of a life. And I just was so thankful to be able to just work and concentrate on my work and concentrate on the present moment. So every day I would take a long walk in the morning. I would take my phone and I was desperate to take pictures. I don't know why. And then in the afternoon, I was drawing and collaging with these discarded drawings. I made around 200 of those in 2 years. They started up very little and ended up 22 by 30. And this is one of them. So for some reason, I discovered, because I was very concentrated on my work, that I was actually expressing something very similar that to me has to do with silence and meditation in both media, photography and collage. And it was not that I was taking a photo, this is particularly in Galveston, and I was making a collage for it. I started seeing that there were natural matches. So something in my subconscious was already, there expressing something very, very similar that I needed to express. Being in the Jung Center, right? Subconscious starts working out there. So this is how this series came about. There are 9 different ones so far, but it's an ongoing project. I printed them with a very good friend photographer and printmaker. They are, for me, totally fine art in the sense of like they were carefully crafted on this wonderful paper. I love drawing. I love paper. And we would work on the computer with the 2 images, right? The collage and the print. And you see this like general color there. That was the way of uniting them besides the theme. One more thing I could say is that, and going back to the idea of a trace of our energy, I think this was a little kid playing on the sand, and I just loved that ephemeral little making he was doing. And for me, it was all about being in the present and being all there. Kids and artists, we just do that. And for me, it was like a moment and a work and an opportunity to sort of leave a memory of that sensitivity and that relation to nature and to the moment. Thank you. I don't know if you have any questions, but that's it.
Any questions for her?
When did you first start creating? Did you find out that you had this in you?
Being an artist all my life. My parents were both artists. They passed, and I grew up surrounded by art, and I was always working. But in my adolescence, I obviously rejected it and decided to go into architecture school, which I did for 1 year and then went back to my natural environment. It's just central to me and who I am. Yes. Thank you.
My name is Chris Turner, and I'm an abstract artist. I mainly paint with acrylics on canvas, but sometimes I do venture off the reservation sometimes. This particular piece is kind of an experiment for me because most of my work has a real geometric underpainting that then gets largely covered up by the rest of the work. But there's always a ghost image of this geometric going on in the background. And this time I elected to skip the geometry and just go straight for whatever was going to move. And so it started off very minimalistic, and then it kind of grew from there. Most of my art, I can't think of a single painting I've ever done where I knew at the beginning, when I started, I knew how it was going to look at the end. It's always a process. It's not a linear process, but it's a process I've come to trust. And usually I'm pretty surprised when I get to the end of it. I know I was with this one. Title is Dreaming with Gauguin. It was one of my favorite artists when I was young because I love his colors, and they seem more real to me as natural colors than what you would see in nature. And so that really spoke to me. And when I finished this painting, I just immediately knew what the title was going to be. And that doesn't always happen to me. Frequently I have people that when they buy a piece of art from me, they're like, don't tell me what you titled it. I'm going to tell you what the title is. And invariably, they came up with a better title than I had. And so I'm delighted they're going to go live with it in their home, that it's going to go live with them. But I've had people ask me to explain how I complete a painting when I don't know where I'm going. And the only way I can describe it is that the painting knows what it wants to be. And so my job is to listen to what it's saying to me. And if I do that, then I'll eventually get there. And sometimes it happens over a period of a couple of weeks. In one case, I had a painting that waited 3 years to tell me how to finish it, but it worked out okay. I mean, I finished it and I ended up selling it a week later. So it was waiting for the right person to come along that was going to hang it in their house. And I've got a really good friend of mine who's a novelist. And when she was still working on the first book she published, eventually got published, she called me up one day and she said, I am so upset. I'm like, what's going on? She goes, well, these characters I've created for this book, they're starting to do things and say things that I don't agree with. And I'm a little ticked off about it. It's like, well, you created them. You created them to be like real people. And guess what? That's what they're doing. She goes, oh, okay, I hadn't thought about it. But that gave kind of a window into me into understanding the process I go through when I'm painting. And so I'm just delighted to do this for a living. I spent a lot of years in the world of business and I collected a lot of art. I knew I had the gift at a young age, but my parents were not going to have a starving artist in the family. And so I got funneled into the world of business. I made a lot of money. Who cares? I wasn't doing what I was born to do, and now I am. And so I feel like I'm one of the most blessed people on the planet. And I'm delighted to be a member of VAA. It's a great organization. I just encourage, if you're not a member, join. It is more than worth it. And you'll get back so much more than you give in my humble opinion. So anyway, that's my artist talk.
What was the first thing you did? You got a blank canvas. Did you just arbitrarily do something, or was the canvas speaking to you even before you started?
Even before I start, a lot of times I'll get a vision about what I'm supposed to do. Sometimes I'll get that in a dream. This is going to be your first mark you're going to make. Now with this one, I started off because I wasn't going to do the linear elements as the underpainting. I started off with just this big amorphous blob. Had no real shape or definition, but it was black. And I did another piece of it down here. And then I didn't know what I was going to do after that. It kept talking to me. And this was the result.
Yeah, your piece is close to mine.
Oh.
It's a good spot. So, right to the left at the bottom.
Yeah.
You're going to need this.
I sure am.
Yeah.
I'll put that down. So my name is Johnny Maloney. I began my creative life as a filmmaker, and during the pandemic, discovered painting as a medium and kind of fell in love with it, and found that the stories that I was telling in film, I can translate onto a canvas. Although this kind of mode of working is actually quite new to me, as last year I was painting a lot of abstract pieces. And then I finally just kind of realized that I love narrative and telling stories, and was excited by this new kind of way of working.
I mean, obviously, the first thing that stands out is the shape of the piece, which is kind of came from me thinking of what I love about film and cinema is like the camera movement and what that can kind of symbolize in a story and kind of how that echoes how a character is feeling. And I had this piece in mind because I saw this kind of character on a tram when I was living in Melbourne at the time. It was just this woman having such an intensely personal moment in such a public space. And it kind of felt, I don't know. So it was like tragically beautiful, but at the same time, it felt too intimate to look at. So I kind of had to look away. And by the time I was making this, I was watching a lot of Antonioni movies. And if you're familiar with him, he's very good at kind of distant storytelling. And when his characters are kind of in those moments of deep feeling, he doesn't linger on it. He doesn't kind of fetishize it. He tends to like move away from it. And so that's kind of what I was doing with this. I wanted to have this moment of intense personal drama, but I didn't want to fetishize it. I wanted to kind of pan over, kind of gaze the eyes away from her. But it's, I mean, at the same time, it's kind of common, and the title of the piece is Despite the News, the World Continues On. And I feel like it's, to me, a comment on, you know, the fact that, especially after the pandemic, we were all so isolated in our own little bubbles, and it's so easy to get caught up in the drama of your life that you forget life is happening all around you. And I kind of wanted to, you know, celebrate that kind of feeling. Although it's a melancholic one, I think it's also something worth celebrating. So yeah, I wanted to have this kind of deep personal drama, and then, as I say, yeah, kind of move away from it to kind of show and have it hidden. And that's kind of why it's in this reflective window as opposed to being directly facing her. I kind of also wanted this piece to feel like something you just caught out of the corner of your eye while you were driving down the street or while you were walking down the street, to really kind of emphasize, you know, these intense personal dramas that are kind of marginalized by just, you know, living in a city of millions of people. So yeah, as I said, it's kind of like a new piece. I have a show later in the year where I'm kind of building upon this idea of storytelling on a two-dimensional surface and kind of these different shaped canvases and what those shapes kind of add to the narrative within. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Oh, thank you. Any questions? Yeah.
Where is the show located?
The show is going to be at Sabine Street Studios on September 12th.
My question has to do with the shape of the canvas.
Yeah. Like,
Is there anything on that?
well, yeah, as I said, it was kind of like me imagining a camera movement and trying to figure out how that would work. I had the idea while I was sketching in my notebook one day. I was sketching these people in a park, and they were sitting under this beautiful golden foliage. And I was like, I want that and them on the same thing, but the sheet of paper I had was too small. So I kind of like broke through that sheet of paper and went to the next one. And then I'm like, why don't I do this with my canvases? Why don't I just extend them to the point that I need? And then I'm a big fan of Hayao Miyazaki. And I have a few of his storyboards in book form at home. And he uses kind of irregular shapes to show his potential movement for when the film was finally made. So I was kind of working off that. If you kind of imagine this is a 16:9 rectangle here, and then there's another 16:9 rectangle here. And I just take the two sides and kind of like extend to connect those two frames. So it's kind of like a beginning and an end. But I also like the idea that you can see it the other way around too. If you, yeah, I've gotten that comment a lot.
You mirror too.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting. I haven't seen it like that before. Yeah,
Did you build the canvas?
I did. So I buy pieces of plywood and hack them with my jigsaw, and then hollow them out so they're not super heavy. And yeah, I stretch the canvas myself and do all the priming and everything. It's kind of nice. I like, I don't always have a clear vision of exactly how it's going to work when I start a piece. So that the creation of the frame kind of helps me solidify what this piece is going to be and kind of like what the story I'm trying to tell in that particular piece.
Outstanding.
Oh, thank you.
Looking forward to seeing the show.
Well, I look forward to finishing. Yeah, this is going to be in it. I would have had it for sale if it was, but this is one of the pieces in the show. Yeah. Duly noted. Thank you.
Yes.
Hey. All right. Thank you, everybody. I want to thank everyone at BAA for their support and their art and the organization. I also want to do like a moment of silence for our veterans, past, present, and future, and the artists who have been persecuted in the legal system, or any veterans that have, sacrificed themselves for our freedom to have our First Amendment. So just. Thank you. All right, I'm Rosalinda, and this particular piece is from a series called Interventions of a Bag Lady. It's a series that 2011, yeah, about 2011. So it's like an on and off type of series. In that period, I was living in New York, and I've always been a city girl for the most part. And so, but it became like really glaring, just the suffering of people who are rough sleepers, or even like this, part of society that's very marginal. Like they might have a place to live indoors, but they're also like on the street perpetually due to a variety of factors. And so I started to wonder, as an artist, like, how can I take my compassion and my imagination to like reimagine narratives, to reignite people's compassion, ignite people's eyes for such marginalized people. So I started to develop these different, outfits made out of bags that I've collected. Some people gave them to me. So this one is my Heart New York bag, and this particular area is kind of, for this series, at this point in time during 2017 to 2018, I was doing this series as well as a few others in a place upstate New York called Roxbury. It was a farm, and I had this idea of, how could artists, create these short little mini residencies and really soak themselves in nature to create interesting works. So this is a greenhouse, and it's also in a rural setting. So it's this series of Interventions of a Bag Lady, upstate New York and Roxbury, is kind of rare, because usually the series would be, I'd be in an urban setting. I'd kind of like engage architecture, maybe other people. So this is a bit of a departure, but nonetheless intriguing. And this work has been shown at CUNY, which is City University of New York, as well as Art in Odd Places. I might potentially do something this year with Thank You, Have a Nice Day bags. A lot of people had really bad days. I mean, they're like on the verge of unaliving themselves in different ways, going on rampages. So I don't know. I'm going to let it simmer and see what happens. But if I continue the series, that might be the next direction I go in. So thank you, everybody, for your time and attention. Any questions?
Outstanding. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I can't see very well from here, but is she elated? This figure, is she jumping, like smiling, or what?
She's on like a chair. So it's kind of more reference to classical iconography of women, a contrapposto type of situation. She's holding a skull, so that also references Shakespeare, but it's an animal skull, and she has some onions in her hand, and that's like I don't know. I just saw those onions. I thought they were very rad, and I was like, I'm gonna hold them. Why not?
Goddess or some, I don't know. Crash.
She's just wild. Okay. All right. Next artist. Get a good view. Hi, my name's Jill Dietrich, and I want to say thank you as well to VAA and to Kerry Inman for including my works in this show. I was really excited to be a part of it. I have this piece here and the orange one directly across. And most of the questions that I've been getting lately about my work have had mostly to do with process. So I just thought I'd describe that a little bit. And then if there's any other questions, but first of all, I've gotten a couple of comments about my digital art, and I don't do digital art. I don't know how to do digital art. And they were referring to collage pieces that I've done, but they are paper collage. So paper glued on paper. I collect and go through inexpensive used books, magazines, calendars, catalogs, anything really that has imagery in it that I can pilfer. And I go through and cut out just pieces of what are interesting to me. And it's not usually the whole picture or the whole photo or the whole graphic in the book or magazine, but usually just a small piece of it that I think, well, that's an interesting shape, or that's eye-catching, or that would be cool combined with something else. And so I have all these pieces, snippets that I've cut out, and I have boxes and files, and then I go through and piece them back together. To me, once they're cut out, they are no longer associated with wherever I got them from. They're now just a small little visual piece, kind of like a jigsaw puzzle piece. And I am piecing them together into an entirely new context, new composition that's not realistic, not anything to do necessarily with where they came from. And it can be, you can see in some of the in this piece in particular, some of it are realistic photos, some of it's graphic art, some of it's just really more patterns, and it can be really anything. I try to piece them so that one little visual snippet flows into the next and the next and the next, so that hopefully the eye is moving throughout, and it gives viewers maybe some encouragement to look at it for more than half a second and go, okay, what am I looking at here? Some of it's familiar, some of it's not, and what does this mean? And try to make sense of it. And everybody comes in with their own backgrounds and associations and biases and emotions. And so I think different people see them all different ways. And I, certainly have my ways that I see them as well. But I try not to, one of the reasons why I have just labeled them or titled them by their color scheme. One reason is that's one of the one unifying piece about these works is the color scheme. That's what ties a lot of it together, as well as the placement of the pieces, but also just to kind of leave my interpretation out of it. I would like for the viewers to have their own interpretations. I think it's interesting that we all we get barraged with a lot of information, and we all tend to see it differently and in different ways. And so these are fun challenges for me to put together, but I hope they're fun challenges for the people looking at them to kind of figure out and interpret for themselves. So any questions? Thank you. Oh, thank you.
I know how people ask you why they ask you if it is digital, because it's perfect.
Oh, well,
Beautiful.
thank you very much. Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you very much.
Yeah, if I did that, there'd be glue spilled all over the place.
Well, there is glue spilled on.
The technical question. I started doing a lot of collages too, but how do you protect it once you're done? Because, I guess you, like me, you're using a lot of different sources.
Right, and different types of paper and so I use different glues because there's different types of paper.
Right.
In the end, though, because
I'm piecing them together and I'm kind of tapping them down, gluing them down. There may be a lot of edges that aren't quite sealed all the way. I go over the whole thing with matte medium and kind of give it a good seal. And then I've been also spraying it with like a spray varnish, because that also, the matte medium helps kind of not only glue it down, but also kind of make the finish, even, exactly. And then the spraying the varnish kind of helps not only protect it, but obscure some of like the brush marks from the matte medium. So that's what.
Do you keep your pieces by palette? Like these are
Oh, the little cutouts?
Yes.
I do. I have been lately. I started off when I wasn't necessarily working with a color scheme per se, and I was filing things by what subject matter it was. And so I do have some files of like, butterflies or windows or whatever. But I found it's easier for me. I have boxes with the bigger cutouts that are all aqua, and then smaller boxes for the little bitty ones. And it just, because that tends to be the unifying thing for me, is to kind of make all these disparate images come together. And so it has become easier to just store them by color-ish.
Yes. Someone else for a close-up. One.
It'll be a little bit different because my process is different. I'm Rona Lesser, and this is my figurative piece. I do a lot of figurative pieces from life, attending workshops where there are models, and so they are directly drawn. And a lot of my other artwork that's not figurative also comes. I love to go out and plein air sketch, even if it doesn't work like yesterday's. I wouldn't probably show it. It's just, I love being there in nature. I like direct work, but I also do work off my own photographs, but not figures. I discovered that if I tried to work off photographs, I tried to make it look too much like the photo, and I lost the mood and I lost the feeling. They're done directly over. I fell in love with doing people in my very, very first drawing class, where she brought in some models. It was the first time I saw a male nude in front of me. It was like 45 years ago. And after that, when I was taking classes, I took as much figurative type work as I could. I took figure painting. I took portrait work for a while. And then when I moved to Houston, I took many, many, many figure classes, and also some painting and drawing and other media classes. The watercolor came later. It is the primary medium I use now, though I have worked in acrylic and I've worked in pastel. I like the portability. I like the translucence of watercolor. And I started doing it when I was going to the figure workshops for the Watercolor Society. And I thought, well, let me pick up some watercolors. I actually started with a set of Prang, like you do for kids, and then advanced from there and took a lot of classes. But when I'm doing figures, it really depends on what pose the model is taking. If it comes out to something that I would want you to see, and something that says something. There's many times I look at the model and they're just kind of sitting there or standing there, and they're not expressing anything. And I might go ahead and draw it because it's there just for practice, but you're not going to see those because they're not saying anything. And I'm really, really excited that Kerry Inman picked me for this show. It was very competitive. And this is one of the pieces I felt expressed a lot. And that's why I entered it, because it wasn't just a drawing. It looks like she's had a long day. She's tired. Titles are really hard for me. I have to just look at it and come up with something that it looks like. And I draw first. The drawing always comes first, and then I'll go in and start playing with the colors. Used to be once the model left, I stopped. In the last couple of years, I will go back occasionally and put in a little more color, darken an area,
work on the composition more than I would. I took a piece yesterday that was a face, and the other day that was a face, and I added flowers all around it for the show at the next upcoming show at this Silos, which is Visions of Beauty. I just, I felt like the flowers belonged behind it. And that's something I didn't do in the past. So I'm kind of growing in the way I work. I'm expanding a little bit, not totally conceptual, but a little bit more into ideas. So anybody have any questions? Yes.
Curious about the choice of the streak of red across her forehead. I'm wondering if you could speak to that.
Oh, she had a scarf on there.
Oh, was that?
Yeah, that's a scarf. You can see it coming out on the other
I
side.
thought she had a horrible accent.
But the color is there, and then the color becomes reflected in her skin tones too. So that because if there's color, it's going to be reflected somewhere else by the light. And the lighting depends a lot on what we get. So when I go to Archway, where this was drawn on Sunday morning, they work real hard to get some contrast in the lighting so that you can get some shadows and some feel of space around it. And the short poses, they are no longer than 20 minutes tops. So lots of years of practice, lots and lots of years of practice. Yeah, fast is better for me. If I work too long, I overdo things.
Yeah.
If I'm outside, that's kind of what happens too. If I've worked more than an hour on an outside sketch, I look at it and I'm like, I went too far. I worked too hard trying to make it look like what I'm looking at instead of a response. So yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
Expressions of it. Reader and the way there's a lot of air in here. I love that hugely.
Well, thank you.
Go to her studio and see more.
Yeah, I keep a lot of my figures hung at the studio, and then I balance it with some landscapes for people who are not comfortable always in the morning. At the Silos, and number 123. So yeah, and the rest of them are at my home and stored.
As artists, there are a lot of artists here. You're often asked, what is your next? We see what you're doing now. What is your next? Turn the tables on the organization VAA. Okay, go ahead.
What's next?
Glad you asked. The next Juried exhibit will be another new place for us, which is Redbud Arts Center.
Oh,
Yes, we're very, very happy about that. Gus is a gallery manager. Gallery curator will be the juror for it. The prospectus should be coming soon. Right, should be coming soon. And so say that again.
what's next?
So then after that, the exhibit following that, we're returning to Reeves Art and Design, Taft and Fairview. Matt Reeves is hosting us. He will not be the juror. We're actually identifying jurors now. But you've got 3 shows for VAA this year, and it's been a while, right? Rona, you remember when.
Yeah.
So it's very exciting that 2024, we're seeing 3 exhibits. So get working. To all you guys out there, get working, submit. And I think Rona mentioned this was a tight show. It was a 9%.
8%.
Acceptance ratio. So most of the work's right. So I submitted work. I didn't get in the show, which is okay. That's the model, that we sign up for. But I want to make sure everybody knows that we already have the next 2 exhibits on the radar. Keep track, and I hope you enter and tell your friends and all that good stuff. So before I sign off, again, does anyone have any questions about? Yes, ma'am.
On the other 2 exhibits, like the deadline, generally.
So the next exhibit is going to be in June. So the deadline's coming up fast.
Yeah.
We're not messing around. Yeah.
I think it's May.
When an artist asks me, when is the deadline to enter? I say for you next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fast. And then Matt Reeves, the show's going to be in November again. So it's going to, last year it was on my birthday. This one's going to be a day off. So yeah, coming up fast. Coming up fast. Thank you for that. Any other questions that someone might have? Okay, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, go to the website, sign up for the newsletter. And if you're not here, look forward to seeing you in person. And for those of you here, thrilled to see you. Happy Saturday and goodbye for now.